It is Monday Night Football tonight. The Denver Broncos, Bo Nix on the primetime spotlight here, but they must avoid Myles Garrett if they want to find a way to win here in tonight's AFC primetime showdown. We'll break it down and show you everything you need to know here on today's brand new episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, Broncos Country? Welcome into another episode, Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you know it is your team every day. Thank you once again to all the everydayers and first listeners out there in Broncos Country. You make the show exactly what it is. We appreciate you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to us or to watch us, however you get your podcast. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter from Mile High Sports, joined as always by Sayre Bedinger, site expert, predominantlyorange.com, writer over there, NFL Spin Zone. And look, we got a lot to break down here on today's episode of the show. We'll wrap things up by sharing our bold predictions for tonight's game on Monday Night Football. We'll talk about the defensive side of the ball, the Broncos D against the Cleveland Browns offense, and why Patrick Surtain must lock down Jerry Jeudy if Denver's going to find a way to win this game. And we're going to kick things off by highlighting what everybody's excited about, the Broncos offense and Bo Nix against Myles Garrett and that Cleveland Browns defense that has the capability of trying to wreak havoc on your game plan. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Sarah, let's kick things off. Obviously, primetime action tonight, Monday Night Football on ESPN, ABC, 6:15 p.m. Mountain Time for those of you that are local here. And the Broncos, they get the A-team on the commentary crew. And look, obviously for the Broncos in this situation, Bo Nix, who's having a tremendous season, is in a position right now where, hey, everybody in the world is going to be watching the Broncos, and he has to take on, and that offense has to overcome Myles Garrett, who's on the other end there.
Well, and it's really an interesting frame to set up for this game too, Cody, because the Broncos are coming off of a matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders in which pass protection wasn't as good as we've seen most of the season, right? I mean, this offensive line has kind of ranked really well in a lot of the metrics that are out there, whether it's Pro Football Focus or ESPN or whoever's measuring, like, you know, pass protection and things like that, sacks allowed, obviously pressures allowed, things like that. The Broncos have done really well this year, but against the Raiders, I mean, the Raiders were bringing some heat, and of course they were sending extra guys, but they made life a little uncomfortable for Bo Nix, especially in that first half there, and they were batting down balls at the line of scrimmage. So getting an equalizer on Myles Garrett is going to be tough, and making sure that it's not just, okay, yeah, we can keep him off of Bo Nix. Now we got to figure out, how do we stop from these batted passes happening over and over again and being drive killers for us, because that was a problem for the Broncos against the Raiders. I feel like that really helped keep the Raiders in the game for longer than they should have been, but it was something that they obviously identified on tape as they were watching, Cody, that they can, hey, if you can't get home, throw your hand up in the throwing lane, and Bo Nix might kind of, you know, put it down there a little bit too close to your head. So that's something too that I think the Broncos are going to have to keep watch for in this game, is not only do you keep Myles Garrett at bay, but then if you do win in the pass protection department, making sure that you get the ball over those guys' heads.
When he was with the Denver Broncos originally, he was once coined as the man who had the best hands in the league, and that was Shelby Harris, that was his specialty, batting down passes at the line of scrimmage. Denver, I think, is going to account for that coming into tonight's game here. But I also think another thing is, okay, how can the Broncos replicate what they're able to do against Myles Garrett last year, right? And so much of that is Garrett Bowles had a really good game against Garrett, but really we saw the great neutralizer be that the Broncos completely surprised the Browns. Because look, Cleveland, remember in that matchup going into it, they were the number one ranked run defense in all the league. And here we are, where you're sitting there saying, wow, Denver's got a bottom 10 run offense, and now they're going to face one of the best run defenses in the league. Well, here we are another year later. The Broncos have a bottom 10 run offense out there. Oh, surprise. And you're going against Myles Garrett, Shelby Harris, and a defense that luckily, Sarah, no Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who's on IR, but he'll be on IR. Really, I think this game signifies the last week he'll be on IR. I think he'll be back after the fact there. So Denver, I mean, dodging a little bit of a bullet there, because he's a piss missile. He's a great defensive player. But obviously, you know, you're going to have guys in the secondary come up and tackle here. So let's take a little bit of look at the tail of the tape here That's going to be the key. The Broncos O-line versus Myles Garrett. Garrett on the season is tied with Nik Bonitto for 10 sacks on the year. Their leading tackler is Grant Delpit at the safety position, but I think a key injury to also monitor here, safety Juan Thornhill will be out for them here tonight. I think this is a great opportunity to continue to maximize a little bit of Bo Nix here. Will we see Bo break out maybe his legs in the run game? Possibly. It's certainly a situation that the Broncos broke out with Russell Wilson last year against the Browns defense that they didn't expect. But I imagine now they're probably going to game plan and expect, hey, they did this to us last year. I'm curious to see what chess move Sean Payton makes here. But I think really Cortland Sutton versus Greg Newsome will be a fun thing to watch here on primetime. Newsome was limited all week long in practice with an abdomen injury. And I think when you look at the numbers, Sayre, I mean, Denver's offense, like we mentioned, bottom 10 run offense right now. The passing game is elevating a little bit. Denver's finding ways to put up points. I mean, they've passed the 25-point threshold mark several times this season in comparison to how many times that they've done it, I think, over the course of the last 7 years. So that's great progress right there. But obviously, you know, primetime is a great way to get Cortland involved. And obviously, Devon Vele, your leading number 2 wide receiver right now. We'll see how things go here. But for Bo Nix, a great opportunity ahead of him against this Browns defense that, look, they struggle in a multitude of different categories. Denver's got to capitalize and take it to them on primetime action. Show the world that, hey, we're here.
No question about it. And one of the things that the Browns struggle with the most offensively, maybe a little bit of a spoiler alert for what we'll talk about, they are 32nd in the NFL in third down offense, which means that your defense likely going to be able to steal you some extra possessions in this game. And for the Denver Broncos offense, that means you need to be able to dictate the pace of this game. You want to dictate time of possession. You want to make sure that you're getting ahead of the sticks, not making too many mistakes, obviously, out there, because you're going to get those opportunities with the football. What are you going to do with them? And an interesting note, Cody, in terms of the rushing attack for the Denver Broncos, which is bottom 10 in the NFL, net rushing yards overall this season, the Broncos are 23rd in the NFL. But here's the interesting note. Over the last 3 weeks, Bo Nix has carried the ball a total of 6 times, a total of 6 carries for 10 yards over the last 3 games. In the previous 9 games combined, he only had 1 game in which he didn't have 5 or more running attempts, and that was against the Pittsburgh Steelers all the way back in week 2 when he had 4. So we haven't seen Bo running the ball as much lately. Maybe that's partly because he's got a sore back from carrying the whole team. Remember the joke at one point was he's quarterback 1, he's running back 1, he's wide receiver 1, he's everything all in one. He's Bo Nix. And he was doing that. He's still second on the team with 300 rushing yards. So I think that when you look at this offense as a whole, this is a game right here where the running game really has to find a way to step up and be what a lot of people seemingly assume that it is, Cody. This running game has a chance here. Let's say they have a great game and then everybody's like, hey, I told you the Broncos running game was good. That's kind of what I'm hoping for that happens after this one against the Browns.
Well, yeah, we even asked Sean Payton last week and kind of in the buildup for this game about, you know, Bo Nix. I asked him about like the differentiation between like design runs and, you know, a lot of these runs that Bo has had as of late have not been by design. They've been, hey, I'm escaping pressure, I'm just going to use my legs and make the decision, versus we have seen some instances. I think New Orleans is a great one where they're like, hey, we're going to run Bo here. Now, obviously that first play against New Orleans was not necessarily design. It was, hey, okay, the coverage has taken away all the routes. I'm just going to run for 14 yards and pick it up there. But then we've seen the designs there. So for me, it's just about, okay, hey, maintain that. You know that they're going to have a safety trying to play down a little bit to try to protect, you know, for any kind of outlet type of runs by him. But I agree, like this is a great opportunity to continue to try to run the football and get some rhythm, find the hot hand, whether that's Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, who seemingly had the hot hand last week against the Raiders before the knee injury. He's all good to go. He didn't even pop up on the injury report this week. Find a way to feed Jaleel and them, and even Audric Estime. Get these guys the ball. Hey, it's going to be in primetime action. The whole world's going to watch. Peyton Manning and them, I think they're going to have the Manning cast. So, hey, have fun with it. Take care of business and beat down the Browns on Monday Night Football. And we'll obviously share our bold predictions a little bit later on here. I have one for Bo Nix and the Broncos offense that I can't wait to share here. But we'll break that down as well. We got to get to the defensive side of the ball. And if Denver is going to win on Monday Night Football and improve to 8-5 going into the bye week and improve to a 4-4 conference record, Patrick Surtain II is going to be one of the biggest keys of this game. And his matchup against a former Bronco will decide the outcome of how the defense does tonight here on Monday Night Football. We'll break that down and much more here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's Locked On Broncos podcast is brought to you by friends over there at Ice Shaker. And hey, listen up, Locked On Broncos fans. I know you're like me, you're holiday shopping, and it can be stressful. Let's just say it might be far from complete here, especially with 24 days left until Christmas. Well, if that's the case, I've got the perfect gift for passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you've heard of Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker is now the officially licensed product here with the NFL, the NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB, and it will make the ideal gift because it's created by and it's used by the Gronkowski brothers. Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles, and this is the gift you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use the code Locked On NFL at checkout to save 25% on your order. It's got kitchen grade stainless steel bottles that won't absorb odor like the plastic bottles do. They also have a patented twist and agitator that breaks up powders but is silent when you shake it instead of the annoying ball. And it's third party tested. It will hold ice for 30 plus hours, and it is customizable where you can send in your logo and they can turn it around within 3 to 5 business days here. Order your team branded bottles today at iceshaker.com and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. Check it out once again, iceshaker.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off at checkout. This show is also brought to you by our friends over there at BetterHelp. And how do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or watching a movie with the family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is also a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes. I've used BetterHelp therapy before in the past to deal with things like stress, time management, and anxiety, things that, when we get into this life, it doesn't come with a playbook. It doesn't come with a manual to tell us how to deal with certain things that may present challenges to us in our day-to-day lives, personally, professionally, whatever it may be. BetterHelp helped me out in the time that I needed them. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try today. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and best of all, suited to your schedule. All you do is you just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn.
Pat Surtain is always appointment viewing for the Denver Broncos, but when Jerry Jeudy is the guy going up against him, Broncos Country, it's getting personal on Monday Night Football between two former Alabama first-round picks, and obviously now former Denver Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy going up against his old pal Pat Surtain. We're breaking down the Denver Broncos defense in this Monday Night Football matchup against the Cleveland Browns. And Broncos Country, thank you so much for making us part of your day, however you choose to do so, and for all you first listeners and everydayers out there, mile high salute to every single one of you. If you haven't done so already, go ahead, hit subscribe to the show wherever you listen or watch, or both. And let's talk about this matchup, Cody, because there's a lot to get to on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, the big news from Saturday's injury report was that Riley Moss will be out for this game on Monday Night Football for the Denver Broncos defense. So it's going to require some other guys to be stepping up in his place. But we know Pat Surtain, if 70% of the earth is covered by water, the rest is covered by Pat Surtain. Obviously, that's the old Champ Bailey joke. If you guys never told that joke back in the day when Champ Bailey was playing, now you can use it for Pat Surtain. But obviously, he's been tremendous all season long. He's in the defensive MVP conversation, shutting people down every single week. The question is, can he do it against Jerry Jeudy, who's been known for creating separation pretty much every time he runs a route?
Yeah, it's going to bring us back to some of those old school training camp battles that we used to see between the Broncos offense and the Broncos defense, except sometimes it wasn't necessarily Pat Surtain on Jerry Jeudy. And so now I think a lot of it is you are going to see Pat against Jerry. I think primarily, I don't know if it's going to be every single snap, but this is obviously their top wide receiver. You look at Jerry, he's leading the team right now in Cleveland with 645 yards receiving. He's got 2 touchdowns on the year. And both of those touchdowns were long, explosive plays, like big-time yards after the catch. So I think this is going to be a fun matchup to watch on paper. And I think when we really highlight it, you look at these numbers here. We mentioned the yards after the catch factor there from Jerry Jeudy. Get this, no, this comes in from our good friend Tyler Gorse of Broncos PR, puts together the extra mile. But according to NFL Next Gen Stats, When you look at Patrick Surtain, he is first in the NFL in passer rating allowed. He's first in the NFL in total yards against. He's first in tight window coverage percentage. He's also first in target rate, first in yards after the catch, and second total in receptions allowed. So it's like, hey, if you even want to try to go Pat Surtain's way, good luck, because he is neutralizing and taking away every team's top option here. And I expect that to continue to be the case here once again. And I think you make a valid point here as to saying, like, hey, like, you mentioned him being in the defensive player of the year, MVP type of category here. For the Broncos, he is. We saw what happened when he did not play against the Chargers. We saw what happened when he covered Brock Bowers this past week against the Las Vegas Raiders, and Brock just went off against the Kansas City Chiefs in another game, obviously on Black Friday. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, hey, what Pat is doing, like, people shouldn't be surprised at this point that Pat is strapping dudes up. And he's playing unbelievable defensive player of the year style of football here. Really, it's Jerry Jeudy as receiver threat number one, and then it's tight end David Njoku, who the Broncos have to account for. I thought in that last matchup last year, they did a really good job here. But this is going to be a big matchup, Sayre. Like, if the Broncos are going to win this game here on Monday Night Football, PS2 versus Jerry is going to be the one that's going to, I'd say, be the difference maker between everything else. And it's going to be a byproduct on what the Broncos can do in other areas of the defense.
Cody, you're going to have to refresh my memory here, because I cannot for the life of me. This is terrible, people, because we cover the team every week. Who was the corner who had to play last year for an extended period of time that had the interception, I believe, against Buffalo? He came in. He was
Fabian Moreau.
Fabian Moreau. So shout out Fabian Moreau, by the way. My bad, man. My bad. You played well last year for the Broncos. But okay, so walk with me here. I'm going somewhere with this. Levi Wallace coming into this game, obviously, for the Denver Broncos, and them needing somebody to step up opposite Pat Surtain. We know that, man, that situation is going to command plenty of attention as it is.
Yeah.
But I think Levi Wallace can expect, and Jaquan McMillan can expect a lot of targets to come their way. But Levi Wallace, what if he kind of, channels his inner Fabian Moreau for this game, picks off a pass, proves that, like, hey, I'm still here, everybody. I can still play. We need this guy to step up in a big way. So Levi Wallace has a lot of pressure on his shoulders, similar to last year. The Broncos kind of in a big primetime situation against the Buffalo Bills. I think that was even a Monday night game as well. And he came through for him. So look, hey, Levi Wallace, history tends to repeat itself. Let's see if you can go out there and make a play, big man. But Cody, I'm excited to figure out this. We found out on Saturday, Cedric Tillman also not playing for the Cleveland Browns. So Elijah Moore is probably going to be getting a lot of targets from the slot. And we'll see what happens with their running game, because Nick Chubb, coming off that knee injury, has not been himself out there. But they still have guys. This Broncos pass rush needs to feast in this game against Jameis Winston. He is not the fleetest of foot out there. He's a good quarterback. He's a solid quarterback. He can run when he needs to, but he is not going to blow away anybody with the 40-yard dash or the escape ability and things like that. You can get pressure on Jameis and you can get that ball out. So Nik Bonitto, you close the game against the Las Vegas Raiders with the strip sack. How about we get that going again here against the Cleveland Browns? Let's start a new streak. He had the sack streak going. Let's start a strip sack streak if you're Nik Bonitto in this game. Cody, I think he's going to be huge for the Broncos in this one.
When you look at the Browns offense, you mentioned as well, their offensive line. I mean, they're a little banged up. You mentioned no Jedrick Wills for them. Obviously, a tackle. He's got a knee injury. They've allowed 47 sacks on the year, which is 32nd right now in the NFL. The Denver Broncos coming into this matchup, they have the most sacks. They're first in the NFL in sacks from a defensive standpoint. Zach Allen is healthy. JFM is healthy. DJ Jones is healthy. Your rotation is really good right now. The only, I'd say, change that you have defensively is going to be Levi Wallace. But it also goes to show here, like Broncos country, when you're watching this game tonight, make sure you keep an eye here on the secondary when Denver comes out in their nickel. Like, the nickel is obviously 5 defensive backs. That just means it's going to be Levi Wallace, Pat Surtain, and Jaquan McMillan inside the slot there with obviously PJ Locke and Brandon Jones. But when they go to the dime, this is where things are going to get very interesting. Dime is 6 defensive backs for those of you who don't know. You're going to have Levi Wallace. You're going to have Pat Surtain. Now, the thing about Wallace has been playing the dime. So he's been playing in the slot in the dime situation this year. Is he going to bump inside to the other slot coverage area right here alongside Jaquan McMillan, and then you have your 2 safeties, and then is Damari Mathis going to go on the outside? Or are you going to see a situation here where Damari slides into the dime as one of the slot guys opposite of Jaquan McMillan with Wallace and Pat Surtain on the outside, Brandon Jones, and then obviously PJ Locke on the back end? Or Are you going to see Brandon Jones or PJ Locke slide down into that slot? And then you're going to have Devin Key and PJ Locke and or Brandon Jones there in that rotation. There's going to be 3 safeties or 3 corners that are going to use that kind of combination rotation. I think that's something to pay attention to tonight, especially with Riley Moss being ruled out of this game. I'm excited about this one. I think this is an opportunity because it's there. Jameis is going to take chances. He's going to take some aggressive shots, but that also comes with some risk associated for the Browns offense, but has a chance to be rewarding for the Broncos defense in terms of getting takeaways. This is the perfect opportunity for the Broncos defense to ramp up that pressure, slow down the run game between Jerome Ford, Nick Chubb, create opportunities to make takeaways, and give Bo Nix and the Broncos offense more possessions, more opportunities on a short field. That's going to be a huge key this week. I expect the Broncos defense to bounce back against the run in comparison to how they did against the Raiders last week. That'll be something to monitor here. But you know what that means? As we get ready for the end of this show, we're going to jump into our bold predictions for tonight's game. Prime time action, ESPN, ABC, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman on the call. You know what? What bold predictions do we have? We'll share ours here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's Locked On Broncos podcast is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, get ready to tackle the NFL action in Week 13 with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You got Monday Night Football here tonight, and the Broncos, they're 5.5-point home favorites against Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns. And right now, new customers, they can bet $5 and get $100 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can do anytime touchdown scores, you can do player props inside of this game, specifically on Monday Night Football, as well as other sports across the landscape here. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet over there at FanDuel.com. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at the Game Time app. And look, Broncos Country, Game Time is the perfect place to get the best deals on last-minute tickets to games, including tonight's Monday Night Football matchup between the Denver Broncos and Cleveland Browns. They have a brand new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets, especially last-minute deals on tonight's Broncos-Browns game at Empower Field at Mile High. Not only do you get Game Time Picks, but you also get their lowest price guarantee, or Game Time. They will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. As we jump into the fourth quarter action on today's episode, Locked On Broncos, real quick, want to say thanks once again to everyone in Broncos Country for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Thank you for becoming everydayers here of the show, listening to Sayre and I break down all things orange and blue. Just a general reminder, too, if you plan on going to the game tonight, because it is Monday Night Football, it's prime time. It's also going to be in that spot. Kickoff is 6:15 p.m. Mountain Time, so you know what the traffic is like around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So make sure you make plans to get to the stadium early for all the fun events that you're going to be seeing there. And obviously, if you want to catch me before the game, would love to say hi to anyone in Broncos Country as I get ready to head in to the stadium for Monday Night Football here. But with that said, Sayre, let's get into our bold predictions here. We've had some really fun ones from Broncos Country. They send them in every week after the episode post here. But I want to start things off by getting your bold prediction for tonight's game. What do you think is going to happen and what's going to set it up? How bold are you willing to go?
Well, I'm going pretty bold here, Cody, because we talked in the offense segment about how the Broncos, they're bottom 10 in the NFL in total net rushing yards this season. So what are they going to do against the Cleveland Browns, especially after we just went to bat saying, hey, Bo Nix been doing all he's been doing without a strong strong running game pretty much most of the year, a very much up and down running game. Well, how about against the Cleveland Browns? This running game goes off for 225 plus, and that will obviously require, players like Javonte Williams not carrying the ball 8 times for -2 yards. It will require, Audric Estime probably getting a little bit more involved. And, the Broncos, they gotta have a little bit less of those negative plays in the running game, making sure that they are dictating, again, the pace of this game and controlling the line of scrimmage. So in order to get 225 rushing yards, we're going to have to see a type of performance like we saw back a few weeks ago against the New Orleans Saints, where the Broncos were just dominant on the ground, breaking off big chunks here and there and everywhere, and really just running roughshod over the other team. That's going to be tough to do against the Cleveland Browns because they're a physical team, and they've got more to play for than just pride at this point. They want to finish the season on a strong note. But the Broncos, Cody, I think after some of the noise this week about that running game, I think they're going to step up big.
Yeah, we'll see. And obviously, could you imagine if they were able to? I think they didn't they rush for over 200 yards against the Browns last year? All right, so anything is possible here, Broncos Country. All right, I like the bold prediction. It is something that has happened before against this specific Cleveland Browns team. So, all right, Sayre, I'm rolling with it. I'm going to go with one of the Broncos offense as well, and then we'll jump into some defensive ones here. Bold prediction here. I think Bo Nix, he'll throw for 3 touchdowns here tonight on Monday Night Football. I think he throws 1 to Cortland Sutton. He throws 1 to Devon Vele, and then he gets 1 to a tailback out of the backfield. I think Jaleel McLaughlin's going to take one here on a potential route there, and he's going to get in the end zone. 3 touchdowns from Bo Nix on the night. I think that would move him to 19 total passing touchdowns if that's the case, which would be one off from what you said. Hey, 20 unprecedented on the season, like one off with about 4 games left. That would be a great mark for obviously where Nix has been so far this season. But I think 3 total touchdowns tonight for Bo Nix here. Defensively, I think it's going to be a little interesting here, Sayre. I'm going to stick with Nik Bonitto here. I think after tonight, I think Nik Bonitto is going to get 2.5 sacks, and I think it's going to push him to 12.5 total on the season and is going to get him to the league lead after tonight. I think that's going to be the thing. Okay, 2.5 sacks for Bonitto. He becomes the sack leader right now in the NFL after week 13. That's my bold prediction. Defensively, what do you got?
I like it. I'm going to go with, how about 3 total forced fumbles for the Denver Broncos defense in this game? I mean, it may not all
recover all 3 though.
Sacks. Do they recover all 3? That's the question. I mean, that's going to be huge for them, but I do think, Cody, like you mentioned, the Browns lead the league basically in sacks allowed, and the Broncos lead the NFL in total sacks. And so they are going to get shots at Jameis Winston in this game. You can scheme it all you want. They're just not as strong on the offensive line as they were a handful of years ago. I feel like the Broncos are going to be able to get pressure. And I think that regardless if we're talking about the quarterback or another skill player on that offensive side, I think we're going to see 3 forced fumbles at a minimum here for the Denver Broncos in this game. That's not to discredit the Browns have playmakers. They just beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the best defenses in the NFL. But this is the NFL. Things change so dramatically week to week. And this Broncos defense, they haven't been forcing as many turnovers as of late. And we saw it kind of ramp up a little bit against the Las Vegas Raiders. I think we're going to see that continue to build here against the Browns.
I like it. And Broncos Country, as always, you're encouraged to share your bold predictions for tonight's Week 13 Monday Night Football. Broncos, Browns, primetime action. You're going to get that on ESPN, ABC. Like I said, get there early. Once again, you can share your bold predictions with us on social media at Cody Roark NFL, at Sayre Bedinger here. And one thing is always guaranteed. After all the action, you can expect something from Sayre and I on a post-game report here. I'll get home from the stadium. We'll do a Locked On Broncos post-game report for you. And then, bang, the bye week will be here, and there's going to be a whole wide variety of different realms of content we're going to bring your way here to reflect on the first half of the season. And we'll also take a look at the state of the AFC after Week 13 in general. You're going to get all that and much more on tomorrow's brand new episode, Locked On Broncos. We'll see you in the post-game.